Super pumped you all are here this evening. We want to first do a thank you to the ZBT Foundation for making ZBT from home possible. Really excited to see all the new faces and people who are joining in. We've been doing tons of these programs, so we will go ahead and get started with a little bit of our expectations for the evening. And so want to just say up front, we want y'all to be present. So if right now you are looking at something that is not my face or Anthony's face, we ask that you put it away. Whether it's a class thing that you're doing or it's your cell phone, put it down, tune in. We'll only take 1 hour and then we promise to be done. We also ask that you actively listen because the information about standards of excellence is going to be so incredibly important, and that you participate at whatever feels good for you. There will be a portion where we will let you all unmute and ask questions, or you can always drop them in the chat. And so if you drop them in the chat, they will come directly to Anthony or I. We are certain you will have questions throughout this, so please ask them so we can get them answered. And then share your good ideas. You know, if there are things that you're doing that you want to share with us so we can share it with a larger group, we'd love to see that. And then also, if you're comfortable, feel free to turn on your cameras. We'd love to see your shiny faces. Right now I'm seeing Jerry. Hey, Jerry, so excited you're here. But if anybody else, you know, if you're able, feel free to turn on your cameras. And then lastly, don't just say this won't work for us. Let us talk you through it a bit. Let's talk about it more. Let's talk about how to modify things, because here's the reality, y'all. This is what it is until it isn't. This virtual space that we are in, this new whatever you want to call it that we are in, is what it is until it isn't. And I know a lot of us are like, oh, we'll just wait till the pandemic's over, or we'll just wait until it changes. I don't think that's going to happen anytime soon. So we just ask that you're here, present, and willing to learn a little bit about how to do this differently. Anthony, I'll kick it over to you to talk us through some of the SOE changes.
Thank you, Christina. So we've changed it from the format that it was currently in into our core structure, which is conduct, operations, recruitment, and education. This allows us to better support our chapters and our younger groups. It also is adapted to fit what a chapter does or should do throughout the year. We've heard from some of our chapter presidents and other members that it doesn't reflect what would normally happen within their chapter. There is more accreditation points, and before everyone starts freaking out, it makes sense. There is less star points as well. It is 23 out of 30 that you need to be accredited instead of the 12 out of 16. And also the forms and the program tell you exactly what we're looking for you to submit. A little later on, we will show you what the form will look like. And also our Standards of Excellence program, you'll see that as well. And it just shows you exactly what we're asking for. So there's none of those questions of what do I need or what should I submit.
And one of the important things to connect there, y'all, is if you have not heard of the Core 4, Conduct, Operations, Recruitment, Education. We've been talking about this for at least a year. So making sure that if you don't know that information, please connect with whoever your staff liaison is to learn more. But I will pop back out. Go ahead, Anthony.
Awesome. So the scoring system has changed as well. There's no longer stars in each category, how we had abundance of star categories. Like I said a little bit earlier, we have 23 out of 30 for the accreditation standard. If you do achieve less than 23 accreditation standards, you're not accredited. For a 1-star chapter, the rankings would be 25% of the star points in conduct, operations, recruitment, and education. 2-star is that 50% of the core, and then 3-star hits that 75% of the core. You cannot achieve a 1-star, 2-star, or 3-star, or win any of the awards at a convention without being accredited first. Accreditation is really the basic line of what a chapter needs to do to be operational and successful throughout the year. Of course, we want everyone to get 100% of the accreditation and 100% of the star points, but we understand that the world doesn't work necessarily in that same way. And so we wanted to give the opportunity for our chapters to achieve these goals.
So that will all make sense a little bit more as we go through this in regards to the 25, 50, 75%, and we'll talk more through that in just a second. So we want to make sure that we reiterate the concept of not being accredited and what happens. So basically, if you're not accredited for 1 year, you'll kind of see, right? The chapter will work with staff to create an action plan, and then the chapter will also receive a priority visit. Some of you are like, y'all aren't visiting in person this year because of COVID, but we can still do a virtual visit. So those are still things that we can do. And then in the event that you're not accredited for 2 years, your development plan is basically reviewed, revised, and then you also receive those priority visits from a senior level staff member at the start of the academic year. And then basically your leadership and advisors receive specific training. And then year 3 of not being accredited basically results in the chapter potentially having to go before our Supreme Council to present their show cause hearing, which basically means you have to go before the Supreme Council and say why you should continue to be a chapter. And then the chapter is also placed on probationary status, and you continue to remain at that high priority level of visits for at least 2 years. Now, some of you are like, wait, how do I know which year I'm in if I'm not accredited? So the school year of 2019 to 2020 was the first year. So if you were not accredited this past year, this is your first year. In the event that you're not accredited again from 2020 to 2021, then you would be moving into the second year. So just being mindful about that, depending on where you're at. So want to be really clear about something up front. For those of you who have not been using ZBT from home or have not heard about ZBT from home, that's what this is. You get emails all about it all the time. We post about it on social media. But what we want to make really clear this year is that because of the virtual space, chapters will be able to lean on ZBT from home to complete their SOE items. What that means is if we had a past program that would fulfill some type of SOE requirement, we could replay it live for your chapter. So you're not having to find a speaker, you're not having to do any of those things, and we're just going to play it live for your chapter, and attendance will be recorded, and then basically a majority of your chapter has to be there, or the percent that is notated in the SOE requirement. So typically that sits at like 80% of your chapter needs to be there, or something of that nature. And so in the event that you're like, we want to use ZBT from home to do this program, all you need to do is contact either the national office or contact your staff liaison to say, hey, we want you to replay this program for my chapter so we can get our SOE points. Perfect. But then if you're like, hey, we think this would be a great program for all of our chapters across the nation, our alumni, just let us know. We're happy to do that for ZBT from home. And then it's kind of a win-win where you can also get the points for SOE. So again, if you have any questions at this point, feel free to drop them in the chat. They will come to Anthony and I, and we will move into the actual information at this point. So the first thing that is new for SOE is that these are the 3 accreditation points, and then we'll get into the stars. But first, the chapter is going to have to submit their risk reduction protocol and crisis management materials. And then they're going to have to document a workshop of reviewing those things. So it is no longer enough to just have a risk reduction protocol or a crisis management plan in place. You also have to have a workshop reviewing it with at least 80% of the brothers. The reason why this is because typically it's our general brothers who tend to get us in trouble. And part of it is because they don't know anything about the policies and procedures, because presidents and exec board members hold it all in their brain and don't clearly communicate it. So we want to make sure that they're aware of these policies and procedures as well, so they're not ending up doing something that's outside of what we should be doing. You will see, and we're not going to read this part to you, but on the right side of the screen, you will see the what you need to submit. That is the information that you will need to submit in order to adequately submit for this particular accreditation point. Where you see it says HQ tracked, that means that we on the staff level are already tracking it for you. There's nothing that you need to do or provide documentation for. So again, if you've got questions, just let us know. The second one was always a part of SOE. Each brother has to complete their MyZBT registration, right? Which includes that acknowledgement of our policies and risk management and those kinds of things. And then 3, you get an accreditation point if you were not found responsible for a policy violation within the academic year. That could be fraternity or your campus policies. So making sure that you understand those things. That also used to be a star point. It is now an accreditation point. Then for conduct star points, first is submitting documentation of your sober monitor training. If you're not doing a sober monitor training, this might be something that you want to start doing. Everybody's like, Christina, we're not having socials the way we used to. Great, this is a really good time to get ahead of doing sober monitor training so people know what it is and what it's supposed to look like. The chapter hosts a workshop on the appropriate conduct of brothers at social events. So a lot of times we're like, why was Joe Schmo drunk falling down the stairs? Or why was he inappropriately touching people? This is a great opportunity to be really clear about what we expect in workshop form for the brothers about how they should be behaving at social events. Particularly when we see the Abolish Greek Life movement happening across the nation, this particular workshop becomes so much more crucial to our operations as an organization. 3 is the chapter educates the brothers on the code of ZBT. So if you are like, what's the code? We're happy to get you the information, but this will need to be reviewed with the brothers. Notice it says educates, not workshop. So if you want to send information out and ask that guys like answer a couple of questions about it, if you want to do a quiz about it, if you want to do a workshop, whatever that looks like for you, we just need the materials that you used and the dates in which you did it. The 4th one you will notice is highlighted in blue. The reason it is highlighted in blue is because COVID, right? The Rona is messing up all of our plans. And so this will be a part of SOE once or post COVID. However, right now, this is not something we will be tracking currently. So just anywhere you see blue, that's what it means. The next is the chapter attends or hosts a hazing prevention training with a non-undergraduate facilitator. There will be a significant emphasis on this, that undergraduate brothers, undergraduate students cannot be doing the facilitation unless they have been specifically trained by some office on your campus to deliver that information. But 80% of the brothers need to be there. Again, this is something that you can do virtual. You just have to make sure that you're tracking attendance. And then the chapter attends or hosts a workshop on sexual misconduct or bystander intervention with a non-undergraduate facilitator, 80%. Notice here where it says up to 2 points, 1 point for an additional workshop. That means if you have a sexual misconduct bystander intervention training in the fall and in the spring, you can get up to 2 points for that. Whereas before it was like, oh, you just do one, you just get 1 point. So we're kind of kicking that up a notch. Then the last one you will see is host a workshop on health and wellness. Again, non-undergrad facilitator, 80% of the brothers. And here you can get up to 5 points because health and wellness is such a large concept. There's a lot of different things that you could do. This could be financial wellness. This could be emotional wellness. This could be physical wellness, whatever it is. But hosting a workout workshop could be something that this would fit into, and so you can get up to 5 points here. Anthony, anything that you would add to any of those?
No, it's just, I think one of the biggest things that really comes from it is that, especially in this time of the Rona, this gives us a guideline of what we should be doing as chapters and gives us kind of that step-by-step of, hey, we don't know what to do. Maybe we should be doing something like this.
Absolutely. Thank you, Anthony. Yeah, a lot of people are looking for direction of what can we be doing. Perfectly outlined for you here. So thank you for that. When we look at the operations stuff, we are talking about the chapter submitting its current constitution and bylaws with proof that it's been reviewed that academic year. So sometimes, y'all, I will talk to chapter leadership and they're like, constitution, bylaws, what are those? Or they're like, we haven't seen those in a couple of years. This is going to require that you're doing that often. Again, these are accreditation points specifically. You will see right at the top there are 10 accreditation points in the operations sphere. So then the next one is the chapter host SBRV, so semi-annual brotherhood review vote for chapters who aren't doing it. Holler at us, we'll help you figure it out. But doing one in the fall and in the spring. For my quarter schools who are like Christina, we have multiple options for the fall and multiple options for the spring. Great. I would suggest doing SBRV in the later quarter of the fall and the later quarter of the spring, but really doing it in whatever way makes sense. Then the chapter executes ZBT fraternity rituals. Again, some of you are like, Christina, we cannot have 100 people in one place. And what I'm saying back to you is we are getting ready to teach you all about how to do all of the rituals virtually. So that is something that is coming, and we will have information about how to do it. However, I have seen some chapters who are talking about, you know, if they have 15 new members or new brothers, just having the exec and the new brothers there for initiation. If, you know, 20 to 25 is their limit in their town or city or campus. And so trying to limit the number of people there. So being really creative about that kind of thing will be important. And then the chapter submits their inventory of the ritual regalia and also provides a plan of what is missing and how to purchase it. Now we have some chapters that are like, we don't have the money to purchase the ritual kit. That's fine. We can also figure out how to help you share with chapters that are nearby or rent a kit for a period of time. And then the chapter receives or achieves a GPA of 2.7 in all academic terms. Again, nod to our friends at the quarter schools. Before, this language has been really heavy in semester language. And so hopefully this will be helpful in kind of understanding what is needed from you. We haven't gotten any questions yet from folks, but again, stop us, pause us, send us a question if there's anything that you would like to talk more about. You will see at the top of this one, a blue line. 100% of the brothers are involved in a registered student organization outside of ZBT or hold a job or volunteer position on or off campus. We're not recording this year. This was something that we had last year, but we are not recording this year just because we think it will be an undue burden on folks, and it's not always something that everybody can do virtually, and we want everybody to be safe. So that when we are not taking, submitting your tax exempt status, this one can sometimes be really easy. And if you're like, we have no idea how to get this information, give us a call. We'll help you find it. The chapter has a 0 balance at the Standards of Excellence deadline. This one is big. So some chapters will ask us, well, what if we're on a payment plan? You would not get this accreditation point. Now, we will have a part in the star points about if you're on a payment plan, but the accreditation is there for folks who have a 0 balance because all money in an academic year is due March 31st. This is due by May 9th. And so you are already long overdue if you are not at a 0 balance by the time of Standards of Excellence deadline. Again, if you've got questions about that, let's just talk about it. The next one is that the chapter meets the attendance expectation for the fraternity required program. So that's both Regional Officer Institute and the International Convention. If you attended virtually this summer, good for you. You've already got half of the point. A lot of times people ask us if this also includes like President's Leadership or Emerging Leaders Institute. It does not. That is not a required program. And then lastly, the chapter fully utilizes the fraternity's director-based officer structure. Okay. Some of you are still on the old officer structure. Some of you still have IVPs and EVPs and Sergeant of Arms and all these different things. All of those positions are going away September 1. So you need to make sure that you are updating your roster, updating your exec leadership list, and getting on the director base. Some people will say, Christina, that's dumb. You just changed the names and nothing else changed. Not true. We changed all of the resources too. And so if you still have an IVP and an EVP, it is not surprising to me that that person feels like they do not have resources for their job, because there are no resources for them, because the resources are currently based on the 8-person director-based structure. So any questions, or Anthony, anything that you would add to that? Okay, then I will kick it over to you.
Awesome. Thank you, Christina. So the next one, we're starting with our star points. The first one is attendance. The chapter attends at least one fraternity organized program. such as Recruitment University, Emerging Leaders, the President's Leadership Academy, iConnect, and there's an additional 4 points available per program that's attended. So that means that this is 5 points. There's nothing that needs to be submitted. We are able to see who is going, and we'll be able to mark that down for your chapters. The next one is ritual. The chapter holds the officer installation ceremony for each new executive board. This is also another thing that we get a lot is we have an officer installation ceremony. Yes, we do. Crack open that gold book and look through it. There's a lot of rituals that I know that a lot of people just need a quick refresher over. This next one is in blue. The chapter holds a dress rehearsal for the initiation ritual. We do not want you all to be in a closed room longer than you have to, and especially when we're doing ritual, virtual like that. But especially since we're doing that, there's no need for this. And you'll learn more about that soon. The last one is the chapter reviews the initiation ritual with each new brother class. This one is, basic. This one is something that everyone needs to do. Why would we put somebody in a position, tell them all these words, say these things, and then just never talk about it? It tells them more about our organization and really dives into that. The next one is our internal operations. The chapter has a functioning committee structure with each brother on at least one committee or board. This one, everyone should be involved. There's committees that always can be made for our larger groups. And I know for our smaller groups, they're mostly on the executive board and the chairmen. Note for this one, each director and chairman are the leader of their own committee. So they do count for this even if they're not a technical committee member, because they are the ones that do lead those committees. The chapter shares its overall programming calendar. Very easy. Everyone should be having one of these. Organization is truly key with fraternity. The chapter submits its standards board processes and documentation of their monthly meetings. A lot of people just stop when it comes to standards board and think that it's punishment and all of those types of things. What the standard board does is make sure that we're holding our standards high as ZBT men. And so when they are meeting over the month, they're making sure that you can meet your brotherhood quality standards. And if you do not have brotherhood quality standards and need help with that, give us a holler and we can help out. The chapter submits their officer transition programs. If that's just sitting down, walking through events, whatever that may be, we want to know and make sure that the past officers are not just leaving the new officers high and dry. The next one being academics. The chapter has an academic improvement plan for anyone that's under a 2.7. We want to make sure that our brothers are achieving high so that when they graduate, they can be a great professional as well. The chapter has a study program that applies to all brothers. We are going to university and college to get a degree. The chapter GPA is above the all men's average of the campus that you are a part of. And the chapter GPA ranks in the top 25% among the men's fraternities. These ones are just very much about making sure that our brothers are doing what they should at school as well.
Yeah, and really quickly before we move on, one of the things that I want to say about the standards board is that the standards board should also be used to acknowledge and recognize positive behavior as well, whether that's high GPAs or they're always going to class or they're always going to meetings, whatever it may be, but the standards board should also be doing positive things. And then two, ZBT staff is working on creating a template officer transition program for the upcoming term. And so when those of you who are on the call are turning over potentially at the end of the term, you will have some information to be able to guide your transitions program.
Awesome, thank you, Christina. Our next one is our alumni and family engagement. We did change the wording from parents to family because sometimes our family is who we choose and who supports us. The chapter engages alumni through at least 2 newsletters or events per academic term, an additional point available for sending a 3rd newsletter per academic year. It's really just about making sure that our alumni are engaged and making sure that they know what is going on and supporting us when we need it. The chapter engages families through at least 2 newsletters or events per academic year, an additional per sending a third, making sure that the parents know what we're doing. They love seeing their sons, the families love seeing the ones they support doing these things. And the chapter invited alumni, non-advisors, to chapter meetings or events. It's really important for the ones that are in the local area to be able to physically be there and support the chapter. And then another item, if you do have questions, remember to just throw them down in the chat. And then the next one, is our campus experience. Again, this one's gonna have a lot of blue area. The chapter has at least 1 officer on the executive board of the respective governing council. It is really important to have that representation of ZBT when it comes to that governing board. These 3 were not recording this year. The chapter has representation on the respective governing council's committees. Note for that one, it is not the IFC representative. The chapter sponsors or co-sponsors a campus-wide event other than philanthropy. We do put a total of 3 points in that category, but we are not requiring it this year, recording it at all. The next one, the chapter hosts a campus-wide event other than philanthropy. And so this one is a little bit different from a co-sponsored event. The co-sponsored, you're working with somebody else and all that. The campus-wide is just us on our own. ZBT is getting this on. The next one, at least 1 brother holds a leadership role in another RSO or event, and the chapter can receive up to 5 points in that area. We know that many of our chapter brothers are leaders in many of these RSOs and many of these organizations, and we also kept in mind our smaller groups that might have members in these RSOs, but they might not have 50 people that are in leadership. So we wanted to make sure that we had a cap on those points to be fair to all of our chapters.
Yeah, I think one of the really important things, particularly about the chapter has at least 1 officer on the exec board of their governing council. If your campus doesn't have like an IFC, because there's not enough IFC organizations and it's like a, just a Greek council or whatever, you would just need to have a representative on that board in order to suffice. But then remember, and we got this a lot in this past SOE timeframe, was that a lot of people thought their IFC delegate was that person, and they are not. That is not the role of the IFC delegate. Their delegate is really just a part of the delegation of IFC and typically attending the meetings. One of the other really important things that Anthony talked about but I just want to kind of reiterate is that co-sponsorship is really about funds or products, or you gave them something that helped them put on this event. Whereas hosting is like, we came up with the idea, we're going to do the whole thing, all of that type of stuff. So really paying attention to the difference in language there. So then when we look at the operations star points, this is campus experience. Again, at least 1 brother receives local recognition for his involvement on campus. We're not doing that this year, but that will be there next year. The chapter receives local recognition for involvement on campus. Again, because involvement on campus may vary, we just wanted to level the playing field for everyone, and so we won't be doing that. But we will be still accepting your submissions of your score on if there's an accreditation program that your campus is still hosting, or you can submit a letter of review by your fraternity and sorority advisor. So some of your campus may be saying, we're throwing the accreditation program out of the window. Totally fine, but we would still need some letter from them saying, hey, they're in good standing, they're doing okay. And then when we think about the operation star points for finance, really this is about submitting that you're collecting dues and what that plan looks like, appropriately collecting for brothers who are delinquent on their dues, and then contributing at least 3% to your annual budget to savings, at least 5% of its annual budget to savings. Right now, some of you are like, Christina, we're charging people $6 to come back in the fall because of COVID. Totally understand. This is based on your annual budget. So it doesn't have to look the same every single year. So it's that 3% of the annual budget or 5% of the annual budget. And then lastly, the chapter conducts a financial review. basically meaning either an advisor or if you have like an accountant, that they're looking over your finances at least once a year. Anthony, I'll kick it back over to you to talk us through recruitment.
Thank you. So recruitment, I know this one is, especially right now for a lot of our chapters, it's the start of recruitment. I know for ourselves over at ZBT, we're even expanding virtually. So with the accreditation, we have 5 of them. The chapter hosts at least 1 recruitment workshop each term. It's very important that we're able to have those conversations with our chapter and show those expectations. The chapter submits documentation of the information provided to the potential new brothers regarding the time commitment, financials, academic requirements. What do we expect out of our newest brothers? The chapter recruits and retains at least the minimum number of the men as set by the international headquarters. The chapter reports its recruitment dates prior, initiates 72 hours between giving them a bid, and those are all submitted prior to SOE. Again, the ones on the right side, so these last 3 are HQ tracked. The chapter meets its annual recruitment projections as determined by the headquarters staff. You all have already received your projections in the new system that we're utilizing so that it is more fair and it shows what numbers we believe that campus can produce without overreaching.
Mm-hmm. And so for clarification, right, the minimum used to be 11 for all chapters. That number has been lowered for chapters who have regularly not been able to meet that number just based on the pool of potential new brothers. And that number, 11, has been significantly increased for some chapters that would regularly recruit at a much higher number.
And then the next one are all the star points. The chapter is among the top 25% on campus in terms of total new initiates. The chapter is at equal to or higher than the median chapter size on the campus. The chapter has social media accounts to promote their events. This is huge, especially in this time, is that we're promoting our information through our social medias. I know that I'm on my Instagram a lot more since I'm not able to go outside, and I'm sure a lot of undergrads are as well. The chapter actively promotes Zeta Beta Tau fraternity through virtual and physical marketing, branding, and outreach. So those two kind of coincide with each other. They could kind of help each other out per se. The next one is that the chapter executes year-round recruitment. One of the beautiful things about ZBT is that we do not have to be forced for those 5 days, maybe 2 weeks of recruitment. We're always recruiting. We're doing that through our actions, through our words, and bringing people in. The last 4 are all HQ tracked. The chapter has recruited within 10% of the recruitment goal. The chapter has exceeded their recruitment goal. The chapter retains at least 85% of its new brothers through that 30-day disaffiliation period. And the chapter regains at least 90% of brothers from the previous year, excluding the graduates. So these ones have been made in mind of sometimes we're 1 person off from hitting our recruitment goal. We still think that that should deserve a point. And if you achieve that goal, then you're getting both of those. So we just really wanted to make sure that it was fair for our brothers when it came to recruitment.
I think as a reminder, there is a difference between accreditation points and star points, right? Accreditation points, as we've gone through, you have to get 23 out of 30 of those. Star points are the extra things that make you either a 1-star, 2-star, or 3-star chapter if you get accredited. And so I want to make sure that we're really pointing that out as well. So we've made it through conduct, made it through operations, made it through recruitment, and Anthony's going to get us started on the education.
Definitely. So education really is the main focus is doing the journey. The chapter holds a pre-initiation meeting in accordance with the Gold Book. If you do not know what this is also in that cool Gold Book that we have. It explains how we should tell the potential new brothers before they're initiated what we expect out of them. What are our standards that they have to live by, and give them the option to, if you're not going to live by them, then please do not be initiated. It allows us to really filter through. The next one is our brotherhood orientation. What is the content you covered? Who led the program? The dates of the orientation. The next, Big Brother mentoring program. I know for a lot of chapters we do this, but if you do not have a big brother mentoring program, it's one of the best things that a chapter can have. What are the applications used? When were they sent? What is the education for the big brothers and what they're supposed to do? What are their expectations? Those brotherhood bonding activities, I know for a lot of us, we just call them brotherhood events. But what were they? When were they? And what happened? And also send us photos. A lot of these you'll see sending us photos. We love posting about our chapters on our Instagram, on our Facebook, on our own social media. And so we want to be as proud as you are of your chapter as much as possible. The next one is the Brotherhood Retreat. Probably the most fun. What is the content that's shared? If you do not know what content is shared within this, go to the journey manual. You can reach out to us and we'll send it over. We'll walk you through it. But it's really that check back into all the brothers and making sure that we're all still connected, because the semester, the quarter, whatever it is, it takes a toll on us. And it's nice to have that time to reflect back and be with our brothers. Those milestone workshop and core and elective experiences, how are we educating and growing our brothers? Are we tracking them throughout all 4 years? Are we learning about our core experiences, our elective experiences, and what other things should our chapter know growing through, especially a time like this, but just in life in general?
And typically people will say, hey, Christina, the brotherhood orientation you say is supposed to take 4 to 6 hours. If you need to make modifications and do those 4 to 6 hours over the course of a week or a weekend or a couple of weeks, we're happy to do that. But any modifications that you make to the program need to be approved by your staff liaison. And so typically what Anthony has just covered, particularly the milestone workshop and core and elective experiences, is where we tend to see people fall short. Some of you are on this call like, what do you mean by milestone workshop and core and elective experiences? If you've never heard it, never read it, feel free to crack open the journey manual or get on a call with us and we're happy to walk you through that. So Anthony, I'll let you go ahead and finish out some of that journey stuff for us.
Awesome. Yeah. The next one's education programs, which is huge and also can reflect on multiple different parts of the SOE program. We would like to know what you presented on, who was the presenter, if you had a facilitator, what was the program. Education is really what we need. I always love to learn more, and I'm sure everyone else does as well. Those senior and alumni panels are super important. Getting those seniors involved for that last time, giving their advice to the other chapter members, or the alumni panels. Perfect for networking, getting internships, getting jobs in the future. The chapter hosts or co-hosts at least one program dedicated to exploring ZBT's heritage. As you know, we have a rich history and a rich heritage, and we want our undergrads to be a part of that and learn more on that. The next two we are not recording, I should say, this year. The chapter averages at least 20 hours of community service per brother for that whole academic year. And then also the chapter hosts one chapter-wide community service event with at least 80% of the brothers in attendance. We really do feel like that is a huge burden, and we do not want to record that for this year. Also, the chapter demonstrates financial support for the fraternity's sponsored philanthropic partners, which is Children's Miracle Network Hospitals, Jewish Women International, and the Zeta Beta Tau Foundation.
And you'll notice that one in particular doesn't have a number associated with it. So just demonstrating that financial support is what's most important. Some people might ask, hey, wasn't the community service hours at 10 hours last year? Now it's at 20. Basically, there was an accreditation point that was at 10 hours and a start point that was at 25. And so we just condensed it into 20 hours per the academic year to kind of sum it up there. Here are our star points, and these are the heritage ones. The first one is that you lead or host a Holocaust Remembrance ceremony. All of that information could be found, Anthony, in the Gold Book. Is that correct on this? Okay, so check the Gold Book for the Holocaust Remembrance Ceremony. In the event that your chapter isn't really heavily Jewish, it's also okay to just do some education around this as well. The next is that the chapter hosts a Founders Day or Roger Williams Day event. So you can do either or to make sure that you're completing that star point. Next is the chapter demonstrates an active partnership with relationship with Hillel, Chabad, or another community partner within the Jewish community. Sometimes people will say to us, okay, well, our community isn't really heavily Jewish. We don't have a functioning Hillel. We don't have a functioning Chabad. But I think what's really cool about this virtual space is now maybe you can reach out to another campus somewhere, or you can reach out to your local ADL or Anti-Defamation League and say, hey, we don't really have anybody in our immediate vicinity that could help us with this. Could you, help support us in this endeavor? So if you're looking for something on that front, we're happy to help you. And then the next is that the chapter hosts an event and or educational program connected to a Jewish holiday. And here there's that additional 4 points that you can get. So again, if you host 1, you get 1 point. If you host 4, you get 4 points, or anything in between. And then the chapter hosts an Israel advocacy, education, or celebration event. So it can be any of those 3 things. Again, understanding that this is a star point, not something you have to do, but if you do it, it's going to kind of increase your chances to be that 1, 2, 3 star chapter. Now, going back to when we talked earlier, the 1 star is 25%. The 2 star is 50%, and the 3 star is 75%. What is really important about that is it's overall. So 25% in conduct, operations, recruitment, and education, so that is across the board for those points. Lastly, on this one is the chapter applies for a heritage grant and executes the program successfully. And so you have to both get the grant and execute the program. Those 2 things are going to be important. And then lastly, on this one, going to community service, we are not requiring any of those. So the Gift of Life bone marrow registry drive, not requiring it because we're kind of nervous about COVID and having to touch people and that kind of thing. The opportunity within the academic year, promoting at least 10 of those opportunities. We're not sure that you're going to have that many, so we don't want to record that for this year. And then lastly, the chapter creates and maintains an ongoing relationship with a volunteer organization. We're not sure that every chapter is going to have the capacity to do that. But again, remembering this is going to be in the information so you can start preparing your brain for post-COVID life. And then lastly on this one is the educational programming, so that the chapter hosts at least 1 fraternity-sponsored program. So remembering, those are Words to Action, Safe Smart Dating, the National Coalition Building Institute, Alcohol Skills Training Program, or ASTP. Or for this one, you can also do a campus-based program that is similar. That would need to be approved by somebody on staff, right, first, to be able to do that other program. I wouldn't want you to just do it and then we be like, no, that's not the same. So just double checking with us first on that one. And then lastly, this is the information related to philanthropy. Super straightforward. It has a number associated with it. Does your total fundraising exceed 18 per brother, $36 per brother, $72 per brother, and that you raise at least 18 per brother for Children's Miracle Network, at least $18 per brother for JWI, Jewish Women International, $18 per brother for ZBT Foundation, and then 108 overall for the Gift of Life, bone marrow registry. So those are all the things in relation to the overall SOE. I'm going to kick it over to Anthony to pull up the submission form. We're going to have to do a little switcheroo. So I'm going to stop sharing and then let Anthony start sharing, because we want you all to realize that the submission form is going to be wildly more straightforward than it was before. I felt like before you all were like doing one big PDF and hoping that that would help, but this will be a lot more straightforward. So Anthony, I'll let you talk them through this.
Awesome, thank you. And then also we're just with that last piece on the philanthropy. As you may have noticed, it's not $18 for one organization, then $36 for that same organization. We wanted to make sure that our brothers were getting the appreciation they deserve for just fundraising in general as well. and making sure that any organization, even if it's not our philanthropic partners for those first three, you're still getting that recognition. Christina, you can see the form on the screen.
Sure can.
Awesome, thank you. So this is what it'll look like. We just need your first name, last name, and your college and university. Very straightforward. Then it goes into the accreditation section. I put on every single one of these, hover over the question mark to see exactly what we're looking for. So the chapter submits a copy of their current constitution with proof that it was reviewed that academic year. What do I submit? Submit your current constitution with the date it was last reviewed or changed. And we have them for every single item. You can submit this once, you can submit this multiple times, as long as you utilize your name and you utilize your university. It's easy for us to pull up, be like, okay, so Monmouth submitted more items. And it makes it super, super easy. So even going down to the star points, let's say the internal operations portion. The chapter has a functioning committee structure with each brother on at least one committee or board. Show me each committee and which brother are members of that committee. With that note still that each director and chairman are already a member of the respective committees. So this one is all related around operations. We are going to have one separate form per category, so that we're not having those scroll down functions and choosing and accidentally submitting over here what we meant over here. They're all going to be listed on our website and also sent out to our brothers so that we can make sure that everyone is in the place that they need to be. And it's just very, very easy for us to know exactly what we need to submit. Christina, do you have anything to touch on this form before I push it back over?
No, I will start sharing my screen again. I think one of the really important pieces that Anthony said that I want to make sure we all heard is this concept of there will be a conduct form, an operations form, a recruitment form, and an education form for you to be able to go and submit on. Anthony, can you see my screen? Perfect. So what is so important and that we preach a lot, but not everybody hears us, is that you need to submit early and often. A lot of folks wait until May 8th to start submitting, which if that's your vibe, do your thing. But here's what we would recommend is that you try to submit as you go, or dedicate an exec meeting once a month to gathering information up to submit it. Because a lot of times what happens is our friend Nathan is president in the fall, and then my friend Hayden becomes president in the spring, and all of the information was lost from Nathan in his term. And so making sure that we're keeping up in the that information in either gathering it somewhere or just going ahead and submitting it, because you can submit starting September 1. If you heard nothing else on this entire time together, it is that you can start submitting September 1. So make sure that you're paying attention to that. So that is all that we have for you tonight, but we do want to make time. What challenges are you worried about? What concerns do you have? What worries do you have? What questions do you have? Feel free to drop them into the chat or to go ahead and unmute yourself and we can answer them live action. But we will give you just a second to ask your questions while we are all still here.
So you mentioned something about doing the ceremonies online, like initiation ceremony or something like that. So did you guys maybe have some, like, obviously we're trying to work out how we want to do it, but if you guys had like an idea or maybe like a template, that would be great.
Yeah, definitely. So what we're currently working on, and reach out to us as well so that we can help out. What we're currently working on is actually having some of our Supreme Counselors being recorded to actually put on the initiation. It's going to be a big help, especially when it comes to the expansion process, but it is something that we can also be doing for chapters. If it is something that you want to do in a way that it is your chapter brothers, we can work on that separately and make it very chapter specific as well. And so I will reach out to you and just catch up as well with that. But we are going to be doing it with our Supreme Counselors and getting all that fun stuff ready to go.
But I think, again, to your question, Jerry, if you all are wanting to do it in person, trying to just reduce those numbers. We're going to do 3 of them, a couple with exec and 2 dudes. I know that's not ideal, but in the event that you wanted to or needed to, you can also do that. I did get a message directly about, hey, the chat is only allowing us to message you or Anthony. That's intentional. So if you have questions, we didn't want people to feel like they needed to ask the question to everyone. So we just made it to Anthony and I. So if you have questions, again, feel free to message one of us, and we won't say who you are, but we'll just read it aloud and say this was a question. So feel free to unmute yourself like Jerry did. So thank you for that question.
I have a question.
Yes.
So for the finances in regards to saving 3%, 5%, and so on, a lot of chapters, I'm assuming, are going to only be charging national dues and no local dues, at least for this semester. So it might be hard to save money for not getting any local dues.
Thanks, Jared. 1 is that's a start point, so you don't absolutely have to do it. And 2, if you're not having them pay any money, 3% of 0 would be 0. So you can just say, we didn't save, based on this annual projection. The only thing that I caution against is in the event that the world returns to some sense of what we had before in the spring, you're going to want to be prepared for, okay, we charged $75 in the spring. And so what would 3% or 5% be of that? Does that make sense, Jared?
Yep, gotcha. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you for the question. That's a great question. Other questions? Okay, if there is anybody here who is panicking and is like, this is never going to work, this is the dumbest thing you all have ever done, give us a call, shoot us an email. We are here and willing to talk you through this, what it's going to look like. I mean, I see Penn State's on the call, Muhlenberg's on the call. I mean, we've got all different types of folks on this call right now. And so feel free to give us a holler, talk with your staff person. If your person's Melissa or Shelly or Libby or Anthony or Cody or me, give that person a call, or you can just reach out to Anthony or I. We are the people who redesigned the program, so we probably have the most knowledge about it right now. So feel free to just connect with us via email, and Anthony will go ahead and drop our emails in the chat. So you all have those. And then once you email us, the fun fact is that our cell phone numbers are in our signature line, so you can also give us a text or give us a call. Other questions before we hop off? Okay, we are really hoping that this new version of the program will allow us to do more than we've done before and to do things different than other fraternities on our campuses do. So please let us know if you need anything, if you have any questions. Remember, you can start submitting September 1. It will all close on May 9th, and we will send out and kind of unveil the larger program to everybody, I think sometime next week. So thank you all so much for being here, and have a good night, everybody.
Bye, everyone.